This website helps you figure out and rank your favorite Pokemon. And I spent over an hour going through it to figure out my top 100 favorite Pokemon. Number 100 is Steelix. I've always liked Onix. It's a really cool and terrifying design, but when I got older and learned how horrifically weak it is, I now feel kinda disappointed whenever I see it. I think that sent some affection Steelix's way, since Steelix is Onix, but good. Number 99 is Grotle. Middle stage Pokemon often end up looking awkward, but when they're good, they strike the perfect balance of cute and cool. Grotle is a great example of that, and also it has a fantastic shiny. Number 98 is Toxtricity, specifically the amped form. Toxtricity and Toxel are the first poison electric types, and a theme you'll pick up on throughout this video is that I really like it when they create interesting new Pokemon with interesting new type combinations. Toxtricity is really creative, and I had a lot of fun using it on my Sword team. Punk Rock boosted Overdrive is a blast. Number 97 is Hisuian Zoroark. Like with Toxtricity, I was thrilled when they created the first Ghost Normal type. This thing is insane in the coolest way and absolutely terrifying. It's not my top regional variant, but it's up there. Number 96 is Toxapex. Most of the Pokemon you'll see in this video will fit kind of a similar vibe, either cute little base forms or big, powerful monsters that are often reptiles. But every once in a while, a weird one is gonna sneak in, and Toxapex is the first. This dude is just weird and spiky, and I dig it. I used one on my Ultra Sun team because I liked it so much. Number 95 is Aggron. Aggron is simply so cool looking. This is an armored iron kaiju, and it totally kicks ass. It's unfortunately lower on this list because it's not as good as it should be. Its level up moveset back in Gen 3 is absolutely awful. I did use it in Oris where it's much better, but its rock typing really holds it back. You can get rid of that rock typing with its Mega Evolution, but unfortunately I think Mega Aggron is a huge downgrade. Overall though, Aggron is one of the cooler Pokemon out there. Number 94 is Dragapult. I used a Dragapult on my Sword team, but I also just like its design. A stealth bomber dragon that fires its babies as weapons is so wild, yet so perfect. Number 93 is Dialga. Diamond was my first Sinnoh game, and I ended up using the Dialga on my team. I think most of my affection for it comes from that. Dragon Steel is really cool typing, and also it's blue. I like blue. Number 92 is Shaman Sky. I don't know why they decided to make this thing. It's a totally different vibe from regular Shaman, and because it's just an alternate form of a mythical, it's locked behind being mythical. This could have been a starter or just a normally obtainable Pokemon, and it's a shame this charming design is locked into being so obscure. Number 91 is Xerneas. For a period of time, I considered Xerneas to be my favorite fairy type. I love how its regality contrasts with the cuteness of most fairies, and, at least in battle, its rainbow tree branch horns are so cool. I also never dealt with it in competitive play, so its overwhelming geomancy power never had the chance to piss me off. Number 90 is Dragonite. Some Pokemon will be on here not because I have any personal sentimental attachment to them, but because they're simply great classic designs. It's iconic not only for being the original powerful dragon type, but because it's simply a great Pokemon. Number 89 is Arcanine. This is just like Dragonite, classic and for good reason. It's powerful and a really cool design, and it's fun to ride around on in Let's Go. Number 88 is Ferrothorn, another spiky one. When I first saw all the new Unova Pokemon, Ferrothorn really jumped out to me. It was the first Grass Steel type. Again, I like fun new type combos, and its design felt so unique and odd while still being really cool. I remember painstakingly training up a Pharaoh seed in Chargestone Cave just so I could use Ferrothorn, and it was absolutely worth it.
Ha-ha! It is I, Guarantee Boy!
Hey man, wait, where are you?
Down here! Hey!
What is going on?
I've been turned into the Grunty 4 Mighty Plushie! The only way to return me to normal is by...
I am not kissing you.
Ew! No! The only way to return me to normal is by purchasing enough of this plushie. Available now at MandJTVmerch.com.
This is ridiculous. You are not a plushie. You're just using a voiceover trick to do some manipulative marketing.
Look, man, I'm a criminal. I am perfectly fine doing some manipulative marketing. Watch this. There's also this Grunty Boy t-shirt that you should buy, because if you don't,
Unbelievable.
MandJTVmerch.com for a limited time. Ta-ta!
Number 87 is Alolan Muck. I never cared much about regular muck. It's just a big pile of sludge. But Alolan Muck is a fantastic upgrade. The bright colors and fangs elevate this design so much, and Poison Dark typing is simply really good, only having one weakness. It's a great example of why I really like regional variants. Many of them elevate older designs. Many of them, to be clear, not all of them. Number 86 is Mudkip. Not much to say here, it's Mudkip. It's one of the most beloved Pokemon of all time, and it's a starter from my first region. Of course I like it. Number 85 is Crocodile. I used a Crocodile in my first white version team. It's simply so strong, having both Intimidate and Moxie, two of my favorite abilities. It's also really creative. I love Pokemon that take something like a Crocodile or Gharial and drastically alter something about it, like making it live in sand instead of water. Number 84 is Trapinch. It's just so cute. Little body, big pinchy head, it's great. There's gonna be several more base form Hoenn Pokemon in this list that I just fell in love with as a kid because I thought they were super cute. Number 83 is Scolipede. Prior to Gen 5, I could count on one hand the number of bug-type Pokemon that I thought were really cool, and most of them didn't really look that much like bugs. But then Gen 5 dropped Scolipede, a hulking 8-foot-tall beast that looked really cool, but also like an actual bug. I immediately respected it. Number 82 is Clodsire. The Claude is a straight upgrade to Quagsire. Rounder, cuter, more horizontal, and randomly shoots bones out of its back. It's wild, and I love it. I just wish it didn't keep Quagsire's terrible stats. Number 81 is Sandshrew. I feel like amongst Gen 1 Pokemon, Sandshrew is really overlooked. I genuinely think it's one of the cutest of the bunch and is criminally underrated. Just look at its sprite from Gen 3 Hoenn. Aww, look, he's waving. Hey, good to see you too, buddy. Have a good day now. Number 80 is Yanmega. Yanmega was one of the pre-Gen 5 bugs that I thought was cool that I just mentioned, and it does look like a bug. Yanma is cute, but disappointingly feeble. Yanmega, honestly, it still isn't great unless you're Wolfie, but it does look fearsome. Number 79 is Zekrom. Zekrom looks like a dinosaur, and I like dinosaurs. Its color scheme is also black and electric blue, which is one of my favorites. It is the reason why I chose white version over black. Number 78 is Archeops. Again, I like dinosaurs. I had known about the Archaeopteryx since I was a 6-year-old little dinosaur nerd, so when they came out with a Pokemon based on it, I was stoked. I used one on my team in white version despite Defeatist being stacked against me, and to this day, it's one of my favorite fossil Pokemon. I will admit though, it did not transition to 3D well. Just looks a lot better as a sprite. Number 77 is Blastoise. Blastoise was my first Kanto starter, and I will always be fond of it because of that. Like other Gen 1 Pokemon, it's a simple, classic, and just plain good design. Number 76 is Bagon. Bagon is another base form Hoenn Pokemon I thought was cute and really latched onto as a kid. It's got such a nice blue color as well. I mostly grew to like it from art and toys though, not its Gen 3 sprite. Woof, did it look rough back then. Thankfully, Gen 4 dramatically upgraded it. Number 75 is Salamence. Years ago, Bagon might have been above its evolution, but as an adult, I've gained a lot more appreciation for Salamence. I've used it in several more playthroughs and had fun using its power. It's also the first dragon Pokemon that looks like a not cute dragon, and I respect it for that. Number 74 is Jolteon. Jolteon is my second favorite evolution. Making it covered in spines is such a cool way to represent electricity, like it's just supercharged with it, and it successfully finds the difficult balance between cool and cute. Number 73 is Giratina. Since childhood, the only versions of Sinnoh I've played at all have been Platinum or that one unfortunate run through Brilliant Diamond. Because of that, I've spent a lot more time with Giratina than the other members of its trio, and I've really grown to appreciate it. I think its mythology is the most interesting, and I really like how it looks in both forms.
Ha-ha! It is I, Grunty Boy!
Here to apologize for your ridiculousness earlier?
What? No. I just have an actual brand deal to do, so I'm gonna behave. This video is sponsored by Raycon. Raycon's latest model of the everyday earbuds is better than ever, featuring a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity to connect 2 devices at once. The quick charge function is very impressive too. 10 minutes of charging yields 90 minutes of battery.
I guess I'll hop in on this. I love my Raycon earbuds. I wear them every time I go to the gym. With their active noise cancellation, I can really zone in for my workouts, and the tap functions are so convenient. It makes it so easy to pause or go to the next song. I also keep mine in this really cool protective case.
And all of that for an affordable price. Go to buyraycon.com/MandJTV to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. The link is in the description below. And that about does it. Have a good rest of your night. Or day? I don't know what time it is. Ta-ta!
Number 72 is Nidoking. Nidoking is another classic Gen 1 Pokemon I've always really liked. It's such a unique and standout design, somehow making a mouse look tough as nails. At least I think it's a mouse. Like I feel like the Nidorans and Nidorinos like more like rabbits, but like Nidoking's ears look very mousy. I think it would have ended up higher on this list if I had used it much, but I was always too scared to use stones and TMs as a kid, which were necessary to make a Nidoking good. Also, it should be taller. It is ridiculous that this thing is under 5 feet tall. Number 71 is Midday Lycanroc. This is my favorite Lycanroc form. Midnight looks odd, to be honest, and Dusk is cool, but the poofiness of its collar and spike looks a bit out of place in my opinion. Midday Lycanroc is sleek and cohesive, and I really enjoyed using one on my first team in Sun version. Number 70 is Electivire. Even if the designs aren't considered popular, new evolutions of old Pokemon always get the benefit of the doubt from me because I really like it when underwhelming Pokemon are given new life, especially when that new life is permanent. I never once cared about Electabuzz, but Electivire makes it much cooler and much more powerful. I don't really have a history of using it, so most of my fondness for it simply comes from thinking it's pretty cool. Number 69 is Koraidon. When Scarlet and Violet were announced, I immediately loved Koraidon. I like lizards in general, and the ancient past has always been more intriguing to me than the distant future. Remember, dinosaur nerd. So I liked Koraidon right away, but after playing through Scarlet's story, which is the game's strongest aspect, I fully loved it. Number 68 is Grimmsnarl. Like with Xerneas, I respect when fairy types stray away from the cutesy theme that most of them have. Grimmsnarl is a fairy type, yet straight up scary, and I love it for that. Having a Pokemon based on evil creatures from fairy tales is a brilliant way to make a dark fairy type. Number 67 is Latios. Sometimes when I think about Ruby and Sapphire, Latios and Latias come to mind before Groudon and Kyogre. Not often, but sometimes. I've always preferred Latios's look, and because it's so closely tied to my home region, I've always been fond of it. Number 66 is Grovyle. The middle stage of my first starter, and a very good middle stage at that. I know some people like Grovyle even more than Sceptile, which I don't agree with, but I do respect. Number 65 is Seviper. I like reptiles of all kinds, and Seviper has always been my favorite snake Pokemon. It just looks so mean and cool, and the unbalanced scar patterns on its body are so badass. I just wish it wasn't absolutely terrible. Number 64 is Knacklestack. I like to root for underdogs, so sometimes I end up liking a Pokemon quite a lot because I started out liking it just a little bit, but then I found out that other people disliked it for, in my eyes, unjustifiable reasons. Knacklestack is one of those Pokemon. Its entire line has been dismissed as the Minecraft Pokemon, but I think all three are a creative way to do a unique rock-type concept. Knacklestack ended up as my favorite of the trio, partially because I think it's the cutest, and partially because John and Katie like calling it Nutsack. At least they did when it was first announced. And I thought that was mean. Well, I like Knacklestack. It's not Nutsack. Number 63 is Palossand. I love Palossand's design. A sandcastle Pokemon is interesting on its own, but then they decided to make it alarmingly dark, which is fun. Tack on its top tier shiny and nostalgia from using it on my first Sun team, despite already having a ghost type in Decidueye, and you've got one of my favorite Alola Pokemon. Number 62 is Mamoswine. Mamoswine is an excellent later gen evolution. I never once cared about Pile of Swine, but Mamoswine is a dramatic and very cool upgrade. I also like how strong of a Pokemon it is, and it's really fun to use. Number 61 is Scyther. Scyther is yet another one of the few cool early gen bug types, but I have to admit, I've always liked Scyther because it doesn't actually look like a bug. At least, its head doesn't. You could take Scyther's head and put it on a dragon's body, and it would look normal. Therefore, to me, Scyther is a reptilian-looking beast with blades for hands, and that is straight up awesome. Number 60 is Go-Goat. I used Go-Goat on my first X-version team, but I never grew attached to it. Instead, my affection is much more recent. I grew fond of it during my Pokemon Why But Everything Is Random video, where a ground flying type Go-Goat ended up being my best team member, despite having multiple legendaries on my team. Additionally, it was my first shiny in Scarlet, which took me far longer to find than seemingly everyone else. If you don't remember, I could not find a shiny in Scarlet until I had the shiny charm and intentionally hunted for it. And I got a little upset about that.
3 shinies in one day, obtained by me and only me. I had defied the gods that had defied me and slain them in the process. Because after all, what is a god to a non-believer?
Sorry. Number 59 is Turtwig. Turtwig was my first Sinnoh starter and is a very cute turtle. Remember? I like reptiles. Number 58 is Gengar. Gengar is another quintessential Gen 1 Pokemon. Simple and cool and iconic as a result. It's not my favorite ghost type, but it's a great mascot for the type. Also, check out this cool Gengar Halloween candy bowl I got. Pretty awesome, right? I actually had a different one and it broke in a move, and thankfully they were still selling it, so I bought another one. Number 57 is Greninja. Greninja is a shining light among a disappointing generation of starters. I am so impressed that they made a Pokemon with a tongue scarf, one of the coolest Pokemon out there. Also, like many others on my list, it has an excellent shiny. Number 56 is Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is awesome, and I genuinely get a little ticked off when people say it's the worst of the original trio. I watch the Basement Yard podcast all the time, love them, but there have been times where they have badmouthed Bulbasaur, and I'm like, do I need to turn the episode off? Statistically, it's the best Kanto starter, and Bulbasaur as a Pokemon is just so great. Plus, my nostalgia for the Pokemon Talk series has made me like it even more as I've gotten older. Number 55 is Typhlosion. Typhlosion was my first Johto starter ever back in Soul Silver, and oddly ended up as my favorite of the trio, despite my fondness for reptiles and dinosaurs. I simply like its straightforward design, and the crest of flames is really cool. I am also very glad they repaired its terrible 3D model in the move to Scarlet and Violet. From Gen 6 to Gen 8, its flames would not be constantly on in battle. In Scarlet and Violet, they finally are, which, thank goodness. Number 54 is Tropius. Again, I like dinosaurs. And specifically when I was growing up, my favorite was the Apatosaurus, a long-necked dinosaur from the Jurassic. I used to get very indignant when people would call it a Brontosaurus, which was a later name for the same dinosaur. It's like Apatosaurus was Twitter and Brontosaurus was X. But then a study in 2015 revealed that Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were actually distinct animals, which is pretty fascinating. But it's so deeply ingrained in my head that Brontosaurus is wrong that whenever I hear the word, I'm like, huh. No, it's fine. But anyways, back to Pokemon. I like Tropius because I like long-necked dinosaurs. I might like Aurorus too if it weren't for the fins. Frankly, I feel like they detract from the majesty of the neck. Number 53 is Infernape. Infernape was not my first Sinnoh starter, so my appreciation for it came more in adulthood. It is the strongest of the trio, and I have used it in multiple playthroughs as an adult. My first Nuzlocke, Platinum Without Catching, Brilliant Diamond, and the Teal Mask. It's a really awesome Pokemon that's also really fun to use. Number 52 is Venusaur. Similarly, I did not use Venusaur much until adulthood, but I've enjoyed doing so a lot. It's the best Kanto starter in regards to effectiveness, and I've enjoyed using it across many playthroughs, such as Let's Go and Fire Red with no new moves. Number 51 is Scizor. Scizor is the final early gen bug type on this list. It is simply so cool and also really fun to use in battle. I had one on my first Soul Silver team. It only had one weakness, and Technician boosted Bullet Punch is an absolute blast. We've reached the halfway point, and if you've watched this far into a video about my personal, specific opinions about Pokemon, then you probably like hearing me talk. And if you want to hear me talk more, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. A lot of people think they are, and they're not, so hit subscribe, tap the bell for notifications if that interests you. And now, the latter half of the list, the top 50. Number 50 is Garchomp. Garchomp is appropriately iconic. Cynthia's is the strongest champion Pokemon ever, even before the nasty competitive set it got in BDSP, and it does so while being a horrifying land shark. It's so cool and therefore so fun to use. I had one on my first Ultra Sun team and my team for the only VGC tournament I ever competed in, the 2014 Houston Regionals. I placed in the early 20s out of over 200 people. coming for that title, Wolfie. God, that was a decade ago. Number 49 is Ludicolo. Ludicolo is here not only because I like its design, but also because its cheery dancing always makes me think of the Mirror Bee battle music from Pokemon Coliseum. A song I love so much that I used it as the background music for all of my main channel videos for probably a lot longer than I should have. Number 48 is Groudon. Groudon is the first legendary Pokemon I ever caught, and I will always appreciate it for that. I also think its design perfectly encapsulates the Lord of the Land. Not all legendaries feel legendary, but Groudon certainly does. Number 47 is Dracovish. Dracovish? Actually, it's probably Dracovish, but like, Dracovish sounds like rah. For many years, I hated that all fossil Pokemon were rock type. Just because fossils are technically rocks, that doesn't mean the Pokemon still has rocks as part of its body once it's revived. Archeops is probably the most egregious example of this. Like, it's a dinosaur with feathers. Like, that's it. Nothing on its body has anything to do with rocks. You could argue that residual stone from the fossils gets into their DNA, but that doesn't work anymore because they revealed the Galar fossils, which not only were not rock type, but were also extremely creative. They're inspired by early paleontologists mistakenly creating chimeras by combining the fossils of creatures that absolutely were not related. Now, it is ethically questionable to create these tortured abominations, but I can live with that because not only is it fictional, but also it is very cool. Dracovish became my favorite of the group, both because it looks absolutely insane with the fish head attached to the end of the tail, but also because it's stupid strong. Vicious Rend doubling in power if Dracovish moves before the target? That is wildly fun. Also, quick side note, many believe the head part of Dracovish and Arctovish is inspired by the Dunkleosteus, which I am only bringing up because its name is very fun to say. Dunkleosteus. Dunkleosteus. Number 46 is Seedot. Seedot is yet another cute Gen 3 base form that I've liked since I was a kid. It's just a cute little acorn. Aww. And then it evolves, and I do not like it anymore. But Seedot. Aww. Number 45 is Lapras. Lapras is another Gen 1 Pokemon that's here because it's simple, cool, and iconic. Also, it's a plesiosaur, which is not a dinosaur, but is similar. Number 44 is Grapploct. When Sword and Shield came out, I instantly became a massive fan of Grapploct, and seemingly one of the only ones. I like Pokemon with goggles, some kind of pattern around both eyes, and Grapploct has super cool ones. I loved the contrast of the colors, dark blue with lime green, or yellow. Some people have told me that like the mask is actually yellow, but the border is lime green, and that's really throwing off my perception. And it reminded me of a superhero. It also has one of the best shinies in all of Pokemon. I used a Grapploct on my Sword team because of course I had to, and it rapidly ascended to being one of my favorites. Unfortunately, it's fallen down the list because I haven't liked it as much since. It's actually like so bad in battle, which is so disappointing. And also it's not a water type, and I think it would be better if it was. So a lot of the recency bias has worn off, but I do still like it a lot. Number 43 is Aegislash. Aegislash is the best object Pokemon. And by object Pokemon, I mean it's based off of a specific item, not just like made of inanimate material. It is pretty much just a sword, but it still feels unique and special. I also had a ton of fun using it. One named Aegislash was also on that 2014 Houston Regionals team. Number 42 is Staraptor. Staraptor was my first bird Pokemon. I'd played Ruby and Leaf Green before Diamond, but Staraptor was the first bird to be a true member of my team. Its emo hairstyle is awesome, and I really enjoyed using a bird to close combat blast through my enemies. Intimidate is also simply really nice to have around. Some regional birds are misses, but Staraptor is definitely a hit. Number 41 is Tauros. Tauros is the final Gen 1 Pokemon on this list that's here mostly because I simply like its design and don't have as much sentimental attachment to it. It's simply a cool looking bull, and I respect the hell out of it for that. I finally ended up using one in my first and only playthrough of Gen 1, Yellow on the Virtual Console, where its speed gave it a preposterously high chance to crit. It was a blast. Number 40 is Annihilape. I've made it clear I tend to like later gen evolutions, and Annihilape is the most genius of all of them. It's not my absolute favorite, but how they came up with its design is just unrivaled in its brilliance. If you didn't know, Primeape's Sun entry, an overall recent one, says it has been known to become so angry that it dies as a result. Its face looks peaceful in death, however. They took that Dex entry and realized, oh, wait, we can make a really cool Pokemon out of this. In one fell swoop, they buffed a long underpowered Pokemon and gave it a super cool typing previously only on a mythical. And they did so by expanding on a Dex entry they wrote just a few years prior. It is absolutely brilliant. Also, the name Annihilape, insanely good. Number 39 is Hisuian Decidueye. I know that some people felt that Hisuian Decidueye was a massive downgrade from Alolan Decidueye. While I do prefer the original, spoilers, sorry, Hisuian Decidueye is still awesome. For so many years, I've wanted to see green leafy grass type Pokemon turn autumnal colors, whether through a new form or a shiny. Sawsbuck did it, of course, but I wanted more. There have been some previous examples, but most of them just don't end up looking good. Some, like Chikorita or Exeggutor's shinies, look too washed out and thus end up appearing just ill. Breloom nails it, but it's not leafy, it's a mushroom, which are not even technically plants. But then they made Hisuian Decidueye, which has bright red and orange autumn leaves forming its super cool new hat, and since I already loved Decidueye, it was the instant easy pick for my Legends Arceus starter. Number 38 is Hawlucha. When I was in high school, the first time I ever edited a Wikipedia page was when I saw a passage on some Pokemon-related page that said the flying type has been paired with every other Pokemon type at least once. And that was wrong, but all I had to add to that passage to make it correct was, except fighting. But then a few years later, Hawlucha was revealed and I was stoked. It was a brand new interesting typing, which I've made clear I love, and it was an awesome way to do it. A Hawk Luchador? That's brilliant. I've used it several times since then, often on Team Sky, and it is really fun to do so. Number 37 is Squirtle. Squirtle was my favorite Pokemon when I was very little, back when I was only watching the anime or had the cards, not even knowing the video games existed. It was simply a very cute turtle, and that was good enough for me. It's remained a Pokemon I'm fond of since then, and of course I love Squirtle on Pokemon Talk. And speaking of that, or talking of it, number 36 is Yveltal. I never cared about this Pokemon until I made its Pokemon Talk episode. It was a hit, as was the silly pronunciation of the Pokemon's name. What I truly did not expect was how that meme would persist in my community almost a decade later. It has become so ingrained in my mind that I default to Yveltal, and saying Yveltal feels so wrong. Because of all the fun it's brought me and my viewers, I've become quite the fan of
Yveltal, God of Death.
Number 35 is Spheal. Yet another generally round Gen 3 base form I immediately liked as a kid because it's cute. And it is extremely cute. Look at this thing. Anyone who does not like Spheal genuinely concerns me. Number 34 is Golurk. I like giant robots. Have you seen Pacific Rim? I cannot watch that movie without cheering like I'm at a sports game. And Golurk is a creative way to do a giant robot Pokemon. It's a robot, but it's an ancient one. That is so cool. Tack on its excellent shiny and the fact it can turn its legs into a rocket booster and fly, and you have a top tier Pokemon. Number 33 is Talonflame. I love this bird. While some have criticized it for being basically just an orange falcon, but to that I say, yeah, fair. And that's awesome. Talonflame was a consistent part of my Gen 6 Pokemon days. I had a flame body one I kept in the party to hatch eggs faster and fly me around the region, very creatively nicknamed Hen Mother. And I had a Gale Wings one that was on that 2014 regional team. I was genuinely really bummed when they nerfed Gale Wings in Gen 7. I liked how OP Talonflame was. Number 32 is Gastrodon. I like both forms, but I prefer the East Sea version. The colors and head protrusions are nicer, in my opinion. This is another Pokemon that I somewhat liked as a child, but I grew to like a lot more once I got older. For those who don't know, I met John/PM7 because I participated in a Pokemon draft league that he was running. Draft League is Pokemon combined with sports. At the beginning of the season, you have a draft for Pokemon that you can use and no one else can, and then you have weekly battles that are your regular season battles. My first time trying it was in the GBA D League, and I was so bad at it. But I was very proud of my Pokemon sports pun team name, the Houston Gastros, and I've liked Gastrodon a lot more ever since then. Number 31 is Zen Mode Galarian Darmanitan. I'd really wanted a fire ice type Pokemon for many years because I wanted to see the creative way they would combine two opposites. Zen Mode Galarian Darmanitan, which from now on I will refer to as ZMGD because my goodness, that is a mouthful, is the only fire ice type. And that alone would be enough to make it into the top 100. It's this high on the list because I love how they did it. Regular Darmanitan calms down in Zen mode, but Galarian does the opposite, igniting the dormant fire within a snowman. It is so fun, and I really wish ZMDG was a Pokemon on its own and wasn't locked behind half health. Number 30 is Rowlet. I love owls. I've always liked them, but I also went to Rice University, and our mascot is the owls. Despite that, I never much cared for Hoot Hoot or Noctowl, but then they introduced Rowlet, which is insanely adorable and immediately became my favorite Alola starter. My first one was named Sammy, after Rice's mascot. And don't make fun of the original Canvas one. I know it's ugly, but it's got a sword and a gun. Also, fun story about the original Sammy the Owl, Texas A&M students kidnapped it in 1917. And Rice students hired a private detective to go track it down, all the way to College Station, which is over an hour and a half away, today, driving a car on a highway. The detective found it, and when reporting back, sent a coded telegram that said Sammy is fairly well and would like to see his parents at 11 o'clock. And that's how Sammy the Owl got its name. That detective never could have imagined that almost exactly a century later, this random guy would name a fictional owl Pokemon after his telegram. Number 29 is Swampert. Hoenn was my first region, so maybe my opinion is biased as a result, but I genuinely believe Hoenn has the best trio of final form starters, with Kanto in close second. Since I love all three, I of course love Swampert. It's such a cool design based on a unique animal, and it's so fun to use. It's just so darn good in Hoenn. Its only weakness is grass, in a region where almost no major trainers use grass types. Number 28 is Umbreon. Umbreon is my favorite evolution and has been since I learned it existed. It's simple, but sleek and cool. It's an excellent Pokemon design. Number 27 is Decidueye. This should come as no surprise, considering I already discussed its Hisuian form and Rowlet. Dartrix is not on this list. Sorry, man. I overall dislike the modern starter trend of making most of them very humanoid instead of keeping them animal-like. But I think Decidueye strikes this balance perfectly. It does human things like wield a bow and arrow and wear a hood, which is one of the cooler human things to do. But despite that, it's still a very well-designed owl. This is the best starter Pokemon from the last 15 years. Number 26 is Minior. For many years, I wanted a Pokemon that had color variations that did not include its shiny. And Minior delivered that spectacularly. So many different options, and then its shiny is literally the best in all of Pokemon. How do you make one shiny for so many colors? Turn it a neutral color, then have individual speckles for each of the regular ones. It's genius. Unfortunately, its dumb shields down mechanic makes it really not fun to use. If the core form was permanent, this Pokemon might be in my top 10. Number 25 is Alolan Ninetales. This is my favorite regional variant. I never so much as thought about Cantonian Ninetales, but I love its Alolan form. Every aspect of original Ninetales' design was improved to make it a much cooler, no pun intended, Pokemon. Particularly the new wisps on its head and tail. And also it just looks a lot friendlier. Ice Fairy is really fun typing, and I've had a lot of fun using it to set up Aurora Veil. Alolan Ninetales is the standard for regional variants, improving upon their originals. Number 24 is Lantern. Remember how I said I liked Pokemon with goggles? Boom! Lantern. It's cute, has goggles, and is my channel colors of blue and yellow. Behold! I've never really used it on a team that I can remember, but I genuinely adore its design. I'd really like to see it get an evolution. Number 23 is Torterra. As I mentioned, Turtwig was my first Sinnoh starter, and thus I found my love for Torterra. This is such a brilliant design. It is a world turtle that you just get to have. It's not a legend, it's just your friend. That's badass! I desperately hope it gets a cool new form in a future Legends game. I'd love to see what they change on its back. I also really respect that it's a beast. As I mentioned, final form starters with no human attributes are a dying art, and Torterra epitomizes good, strong starter beast. Number 22 is Haxorus. I was obsessed with Haxorus for Gen 5 and Gen 6. It's a reptile with axes on its face, and is therefore very cool. I also used one to Dragon Dance sweep my way through the Pokemon World Tournament back in Black 2. I named it Obliterate because, sure. I haven't interacted with Haxorus in a very long time though, but I still have very fond memories of that era. Number 21 is Gigalith. Gigalith is the best rock type. I know it's a soft reboot replacement of Golem, but unlike Conkeldurr is to Machamp, I think Gigalith is a big upgrade. The brightly colored spikes make this stony robot stand out, and I love how they turn electric blue in the shiny form. It just looks so powerful and mean, and I hope it gets shown some love with a new form someday. Number 20 is Torkoal. I've loved Torkoal for a very long time. Again, reptile. But also I think it's really cute. Pokemon Emerald was the first time I ever had a true team where I used more than just my starter and a legendary, and I used a Torkoal. It also made me super happy to see how much getting Drought buffed it and turned it into a strong competitive Pokemon. I'm not gonna use it in competitive personally, because competitive battling is bad for my mental health. But I like cheering it on from the sidelines. Number 19 is Armarouge. Armarouge is easily my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon. Skeledirge is my favorite of the fully evolved starters, but I wanted to use Armarouge so badly that I chose Quaxly instead. For both it and Ceruledge, they nailed the humanoid designs while still looking like unique cartoon characters. Plus, their use of armor and weapons is badass. I know Ceruledge is more popular, but Armarouge's color contrast of red and yellow just looks so nice. I also dig the big football pad shoulders and that it uses them as a cannon. I just wish its shiny wasn't stupid. Number 18 is Gallade. In the same vein, I like Gallade a lot because it's much like an older version of Armarouge and Ceruledge. As a child, I didn't like that there wasn't a more masculine version of Gardevoir. As an adult, I don't care, but when Gallade came out as a kid, I was stoked. Elbow swords are very fun. I've used Gallade a few times over the years, and I remember in Sinnoh building myself one to use in battle facilities, even if it wasn't on my playthrough team. I even traded myself a Dawn Stone so I could use it on my first Omega Ruby team, since stupidly, the only reliable way to get a Dawn Stone was from Wally, steps away from the league. Number 17 is Corviknight. I already discussed Talonflame and Staraptor, but all the other regional birds before Gen 8 underwhelmed me. But then boom, a 7-foot-tall armored raven with glowing red eyes you can start working toward immediately. Hell yes! Also, Rookidee and Corvisquire were the first, and to this day only, pure flying types other than Tornadus. Something I'd wanted for a while due to so many other birds being normal flying, when just flying would have sufficed. In my first Sword playthrough, I promptly caught a Rookidee and ended up with a Corviknight named Nosedive. Absolutely awesome Pokemon. Number 16 is Treecko. Treecko was my first ever starter and kickstarted my fondness of reptiles and lizards. I named it Blade, and to this day, it's my favorite base form starter. The only reason it's not higher on the list is because I didn't spend as much time with it as the base form. Like, I think I evolved it before the first gym. Number 15 is Flygon. I have distinct memories of walking to school in elementary school and imagining a Flygon swooping down to whisk me away on some grand adventure. So clearly, I've liked it for a long time. It's again a perfect balance of cute and cool, and I wish it got more love. May we all mourn the Mega Flygon that never was. Also, goggles! They're a different kind, but they're there. Number 14 is Blaziken. Yet another member of the greatest starter trio. Blaziken exudes cool, with its long, powerful legs, burning wrists, and excellent hair. I'll never forget watching Ash lose to one in the Johto League and being like, oh, I'm so mad at you. Wow, you're so cool. I think Ken Sugimori said that he designed Blaziken so people would feel a sense of disappointment when it used to be a Torchic, and that's unhinged. This is one of the best Pokemon designs ever. Number 13 is Luxray. No one escapes Sinnoh without falling in love with Luxray. It is easily accessible and wildly cool. Remember, I love the black and blue color scheme, and I think Luxray might have started my fondness for that. Not to mention, it has piercing eyes and electrical power. Electric is my favorite type, but not because of goofy ones like Magneton or Voltorb. It's because of badass electrical beasts like Luxray. I used one on my first Diamond team and on many teams since. Number 12 is Metagross. Metagross is my favorite pseudo-legendary Pokemon. Think back to being 9 years old and seeing a vicious robot with an X over its face that makes it always look angry. Actually, no need to think back. That's sick as hell today. It's also the last non-dragon type pseudo we've gotten, and I wish we had more, so I respect Metagross for representing a trend that has sadly died, and it has a perfect shiny. It is unreal how cool this thing is, and the only reason it's not higher on this list is that I've struggled to find chances to use it. Beldum is sadly locked to the post-game in Hoenn. I regret not using the event shiny one I got in Omega Ruby. Maybe there was a reason, but I didn't use it. Number 11 is Gyarados. Gyarados has the best evolution in all of Pokemon. Turning the feeble Magikarp into this monstrous beast will forever be, I know I've used this word a lot, but iconic. Gyarados likely would have been on this list no matter what, but it's in this high of a spot because of Team Sky. In the first episode, I foolishly did not use one because I didn't think it could fly. Turns out, it can. And I've used a bunch of Gyaradoses since then in Team Sky playthroughs. Team Sky has been one of the most fun pieces of my content the last 4 years. Yeah, the first episode came out almost 4 years ago. And I heavily associate Gyarados and its Dragon Dance sweeping with it. Number 10 is Phalanx.
War Kirby's!
As may have become clear, I love cute little round Pokemon, and Phalanx is several of them. Not only is it adorable, but I think its design concept is really cool. They took an ancient war formation and somehow made it adorable. That's fantastic. And then its signature move is No Retreat, which goes insanely hard. Hell yeah, Phalanx. Number 9 is Marshadow. I wish this Pokemon sucked. Okay, not sucked, but like, let me explain. Marshadow is preposterously excellent in every way. First is its appearance and design. It is stupid cute. Big head, little body, awesome. It isn't colorful, but when it powers up, it is secret fun. And it's a ghost fighting type that punches you from the shadows. That is insanely cool. But then it's also alarmingly excellent in battle. Technician, 125 attack, 125 speed, unresisted stab, and a signature move that steals stat buffs from the opponent. It is in the Ubers tier of Smogon. Marshadow is just so fantastic that it's like it came from myth. Oh, wait, it did. It's a stupid mythical Pokemon. It is part of the most inaccessible group of Pokemon across all of them. I can't even watch people competitively battle with it because it's banned. I wish Marshadow was weaker and a regular old Pokemon so I could enjoy using it on a playthrough team. But instead, it's only obtainable every few years. I hate the category of mythical Pokemon, and I wish Marshadow wasn't trapped within it. Number 8 is Vikavolt. Vikavolt is the mascot of my Alola years. I liked this thing as soon as it was revealed. An elusive bug type that looks like a bug, but still looks super cool. It's my favorite type, electric, and I liked it so much, I used it on 2 playthrough teams. A regular one in Sun, and it took way too long to turn it into a Vikavolt because they stupidly made it a location evolution you couldn't do until Vast Pona Canyon. And then I used the Totem one in Ultra Sun. I used it again in the Teal Mask. This lightning laser blasting bug is easily the best early game bug type Pokemon. I just wish it was faster. Number 7 is Breloom. Like Torkoal, I've liked Breloom for a very long time. It's yet another cute but cool Pokemon, appearing friendly but then bashing you with its stretching arms and mushroom head. Incredible. Also like Torkoal, I used it in my first Emerald playthrough, the first one where I had any semblance of a team. I have used it many times since, most recently a shiny one in Scarlet as my False Swipe Spore Pokemon. Its name is Rushi, a combination of kangaroo and reishi, a type of mushroom. Rushi taking a nap is still my little profile photo. Breloom is great and one of the most iconic Hoenn Pokemon that isn't a starter or a legend. Number 6 is Crobat. Crobat is just so damn cool. Zubat and Golbat are, frankly, not for me. But suddenly they evolve into a mean, sleek, 4-winged bat? What an absurd upgrade. Like Gallade, I never really used Crobat on playthrough teams as a kid because I didn't tend to use teams at all, but I often ended up building one after the game was over just to have. As an adult, I've used Crobat countless times, and not even just in Team Sky playthroughs. When Zubat is everywhere, so is Crobat. And because of that, Zubat isn't as annoying as it used to be. Number 5 is Zebstrika. I know I've talked a lot about my fondness for reptiles in this video, but my actual number 1 favorite animal is the zebra. Some of my earliest memories are being 3 years old and lining up my animal toys in a specific order that I insisted be in that specific order. Turns out that was autism. And the front of the line was always Ponky the zebra, which was the only animal that didn't just have the animal's name with an E sound on the end, like Giraffe. I do not know where Ponky came from. So you can imagine that when they revealed not only a zebra Pokemon, but one with my favorite type with lightning bolt stripes, I was thrilled. It was an instant addition to my first white version team. If it ever gets a much needed power buff, maybe like a Pegasus evolution, I might vaporize from excitement. Number 4 is Rayquaza. Go Team Sky. Rayquaza has been my favorite legendary pretty much the whole time. Once I caught it in Ruby, it never left my party. I'll also never forget the thrill of discovering I could catch a level 71 in Emerald before the Pokemon League. It's just a perfect Pokemon. It's a monstrous serpentine dragon that soars you around wherever you want. Nothing beats it. My love for it has only grown since creating Team Sky, which, like I mentioned with Gyarados, has brought me a lot of joy. Oh, and we can't forget, excellent shiny. Number 3, Gliscor. Many later gen evolutions were in this list, but Gliscor is their king. Gligar was completely irrelevant to me, but then Gliscor conquered my consciousness. It is so cool! Bright yellow eyes that glow against a dark body, shadowy wings, and a mischievous smile. This design has so many fun things about it. It's like Batman, or like a vampire, without the harassing vibes. I'd wanted to use one for a while growing up, but it never worked out logistically. Even in Platinum, when you could use one, it can't learn Fly. And having a flying type that cannot fast travel you was a major letdown. But since then, I've made it happen many times. Many of those times have been in Team Sky, but I also forced my way into using it in Brilliant Diamond, despite the Razorfang being unjustly post-game. And then I'd be remiss not to mention its exquisite shiny. Guys, it's blue and yellow. This Pokemon was made for me. Number 2, Castform. You knew it was coming, but maybe you didn't think it was number 2. Castform is the quintessential favorite for me because it combines many things I already mentioned liking. Gen 3, cute and round, disliked by others, and goggles! I know, it looks like it has balls or boobs or whatever, but I don't care. This is the cutest Pokemon out there. Just look at its face! How can you say no to that face? I'd always liked it, but I grew to really love it once it became a big part of my content. I will never forget finding out about the shiny Hail form. If you didn't know, prior to Pokemon Home, Castform's weather forms did not have shiny forms. If a shiny Castform changed forms in battle, the other weather forms looked identical to a regular Castform. But finally, in early 2020, they gave the weather forms new life. And the Hail form was blue and yellow! This gave rise to my phrase, Hail yeah, which I don't say as much anymore, but it was a really big part of things for a while. In short, Castform is tied up in my whole thing, and I'm okay with that because it is so damn cute. And finally, number 1 is Sceptile. Like many people, my favorite Pokemon is my first starter. Sorry if that disappoints, but nostalgia and lizards are powerful things. Blade the Sceptile was my second Pokemon to ever hit level 100 after the Rayquaza from the same file, so that shows you how much time I spent with it. My affinity for reptiles and lizards exists because I fell in love with Sceptile. It's a cool lizard with a spiky tail and knives on its arms. Hell yeah. Hail yeah. Over the years, exciting Sceptile moments have really stood out to me. I was thrilled when Ashes was the first one to land the final blow against Tobias's Darkrai. It was so exciting to see it get into Pokken Tournament. When it got a Mega Evolution, I literally screamed. Overall, I don't think the transition to 3D was very kind to Sceptile. I think it looks much better in sprite form, but I definitely still love it. And I'll admit, there were times I doubted if it was still my favorite. It's not as strong as it used to be, its hidden ability sucks, and it's a special attacker due to the Gen 3 lack of a physical special split. So it doesn't even make sense to use its iconic Leaf Blade. I considered if Castform had usurped it, but then I recently played Emerald Sea Glass, a ROM hack of Pokemon Emerald, on my Plays channel. I picked Trico as my starter and discovered that they had buffed Sceptile dramatically, making it the best it has ever been, even factoring in its Mega Evolution. And I had an absolute blast. Sceptile is my favorite Pokemon, and I hope to someday see it get a really awesome new form in a Legends game. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to check out another video of mine packed with nostalgia, I recommend this one here.